Welcome to Acumen EdTalks, where we share conversations that aim to guide parents, inspire educators, and help shape the future of learning. I am your host, and my name is Supriya Chanupati from the team of Acumen International School, where we believe in pursuing excellence every day, not only in academics, but in how children grow as confident, curious, and joyful learners. We are hearing more often that play is an integral aspect of learning and that there are several approaches of integrating play into your child's growth. Today, we will learn why play is not just fun, but is integral and essential for a child's development. I'm delighted to be joined by Aashlesha Kasula, a child psychologist with an MSc degree in clinical child psychology and has worked extensively with children since the year 2018. Welcome, Aashlesha.
Hi, Supriya.
My first question to you is, how and why is play integral to a child's development?
So, play is the language of childhood. As they're cognitively growing and developing, this is the medium that they use to communicate with us as to how they're reacting and responding to the circumstances and the situations that are happening around them. Science has indicated that play can contribute very significantly to cognitive, emotional, social, and physical development in the life cycle of a child's growth. Studies, specifically by Ginsberg in 2007 and Brown in 2009, have shown that neuroscientifically, play can actually, heavily contribute towards developing the neural pathways that then help the child pick up on skills like executive function, decision making, memory recall, and also self-regulation skills. Now, when it comes to, how you would recognize it, how you would see it, is that if you notice a child playing with a group of other children, you would see that they start picking up as they're growing older on negotiating their turn and, group that they're playing with, or that they would try to, calm another child down if they've fallen down. And any of these other skills that they're learning, it is because of their exposure to the playtime that they're having. Now, it becomes very essential that we look at playtime as importantly as we would our meal times. So, my general advice to parents who are talking to me or addressing about how play is important or why they see the need or why we emphasize the need for play is to then look at playtime just as importantly as mealtime. You would protect your meal times, right? You would want to have at least one meal a day as a family, sit down together. It's also the responsibility as an educator, as somebody who's involved in your child's life, as a caregiver or as a parent themselves, to ensure that we're also making space for productive playtime in their day-to-day routine.
Got it. That's very insightful. Are there various kinds of play, and what do children learn from these types of play?
Of course, there's various kinds of play that we can pick up on, and the more closely we observe and notice our children while they're playing, we would be able to highlight and pick up on what these kinds are. Now, primarily in terms of science, what we can identify are imaginative play, social play, and then free independent play, structured play. And then, of course, you can also see play as a sign of resilience and how they're picking up on these things. Now, when we look at imaginative play, you'd most probably identify it, when they're making up their own stories or they're telling you what is happening through the day, but they're also giving you a lot of information as to where the bus was, what route it was taking, and where they were and where the other people were seated. Or if you ask them to narrate a story and they're building up a whole narrative for it, that shows signs of creativity and imagination, and it brings about that sort of free form factor that is very, very essential for your child. Now, when it comes to social play, you probably see it in parts of group projects or a very, intentional guided play where you're asking a group of children to play together. So they pick up on social skills and how to talk to each other and how to express, but also understand the importance of taking turns and being able to negotiate what they want while also making space and being empathetic to the other children who are there. And then in the free independent play, we generally see it when they're able to, self-regulate and play by themselves without the need of another caregiver or a child or a parent being involved in that situation. it also shows us how children can learn how to self-regulate themselves. So when they know how to keep themselves occupied, they don't constantly see the need for another person to give them instructions on what to do, but are able to do things of their own free format. And like I mentioned, you can see that when they're playing by themselves, anything like Legos or building blocks, or just even sometimes, writing their own things or drawing in a free format is where you'd see it. Now, specifically, structured play would be your sports, your guided activities, where then you're seeing skills like cooperation, following rules, understanding the importance and the need for that, understanding how hierarchy works, and then also being able to follow through with it even when they're not quite happy with the expectation of the hierarchy and what they need to be doing around it. So it helps them settle into the society as a well-managed child who knows how to deal with these situations, and then also figures out how to pick their battles, be very clear about what they're okay with, what they're not okay with, and then figure out diplomacy as one of the skills that they need to pick up on.
So I think a lot of parents view play as an optional or an activity that they can engage their children in when they have nothing else, or perhaps when they're trying to occupy free time. How can we reframe this conversation and incorporate play as an essential part of a child's development?
So Piaget very famously referred back to saying play is the work of childhood. That is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. When we look at our societal roles and what contribution we make to whether our families, to ourselves as individuals, to the people around us, to our communities, when you're looking at a child, the expectation should be that play is the work that they do, because that is their way of making sense of the world around them, but also contributing back to how they understand the world and how they're processing it. Now, it also, there's various skills that they contribute to. It helps them with their attention span. It helps them with their memory. It helps them with their callback. Any of these things can be identified through different formats of play that they take up. Now, of course, we need to look at this as, different ages would show up in different ways. So if you're looking at toddlers, probably things like puppet plays and sitting together to watch simpler versions of cartoons also, or talking about these things would be their way of playing, because that is their cognitive level to understand what is happening in these things. You could also incorporate sand, maybe, if accessibility is an issue, just a tray and then you have sand in it. Getting them, it doesn't necessarily have to be educational, but also retracing shapes, retracing letters in sand can be fun. It also exposes them to the tactile function of how their sensory awareness is, and that can greatly contribute towards that. Water can be a good substitute if sand is not available. And then, of course, blocks are infamously a part of our play routines that we pick up in this thing. It is something that we as therapists also include as a part of our narrative in therapeutic intervention. Because while adults generally look at talk therapy as a very essential way of communicating, younger children, especially toddlers, or even children of the ages of 6 to 8, might not be very accurate in terms of expressing what exactly they're feeling. Play therapy is a evidence-based, scientifically oriented therapeutic intervention that we depend on to help us communicate with the child, and also then help us understand what the child is communicating with us. Now, when it comes to preschoolers, of course, you're looking at more imaginative, explorative play, because their cognitive ability has developed. They're able to pick up things in their surrounding. They're able to model things that they see from parents, caregivers, teachers, even the children around them. So, pretend kitchens is something you would see that they're very interested in, or wanting to dress up, regardless of their age, they would probably want to pick up on, wearing shoes of the parents and then walking and strutting around in them, because they'd want to understand what it means to
I
be
think that's
adult.
an infamous form of play, sexy in our childhood. Of course, pretending to be an adult.
Exactly, dressing up and wanting to embody people that we see and model, because especially you'd see that the ones that they like, they're more willing to embody. So if they have a favorite teacher in school or a favorite older child or sibling that they play around with, they would want to embody them. So that's very indicative of how their imagination and their creativity is really starting to grow and take flight. And that's a very good, space to see in schoolers as opposed to toddlers. And then with the older children, play is always more rule-based because they're starting to identify their own identity, what it means to have a social identity, what it means to be a part of a friend group, what it means to, be recognized by their own peers. While in your preschooler phase, their focus is more about the teachers and their parents because that is who contribute mostly to their day-to-day existence. But then as they're growing older, their whole social identity starts becoming a thing that they start thinking more about. So it's not just about their parents or teachers, it's also about my peers and maybe some older friends of theirs that they're exposed to, and how they feel or think about them can become very important. So they tend to look at cooperative play as something that is more important, where they would put in extra effort to accommodate other kids, to accommodate what they want, but also what the others,
the give and take aspect.
Exactly.
Got it.
And that is something that really develops and takes flight during the older phases that we see. Third grade, fourth grade onwards is a good space for us to see. So around 8-9 years is what you'd probably expect them to be. And then this, of course, it comes back to diplomacy, negotiation, being able to communicate, self-expression. All of these different elements start to develop and build as they're able to do this.
Understood. What are different ways that parents can incorporate meaningful play into a child's everyday routine? And perhaps, I think this is just something that I'm curious about. What are any signs that indicate that a child is not engaging in meaningful play?
So, of course, there's different ways to figure out how play makes an appearance in your child's time. But I think what I would start first with and emphasize on is the fact that play is a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's not optional, but it is very, very mandatory that there is some exposure to it. Now, generally, when parents are initially, when we're consulting with a parent to take on a case for the child, and I sit down with each of the parents to sort of understand. A lot of times, a common concern that they bring up is, it's very important for my child to be learning around this time because this time is very limited. And if they, miss out on this, they might miss out on integral aspects that they should be picking up right now that they might not have access to later, or that time is a factor that heavily dictates how they look at it. But the idea is that you can make very, very simple swaps in your day-to-day routine to bring in meaningful play, because you as a parent, you as a caregiver, you as an educator are actually bringing meaning to what the child is doing. The child themselves is just focused on play being important to them. You define the meaningful aspect, as the other person who's involved in it. God. So simple swaps could be, you could be watching TV together, but instead of just watching TV, it could be more about you pausing it, or if it's a YouTube video, you could pause it and ask your child, what is this person doing? Well, how do you think they would feel in a situation like that? Especially when there are references to maybe negative emotions or upsetting emotions, rather, where they're upset, they're sad, they're crying, the character on the TV. You could pause and ask your child, how do you think this person is feeling right now? And getting them to name the emotion then shows that emotional growth and, that recognition that they're able to make, which means at some point they're able to then come back and also express and communicate to you.
And kind of connect it to, okay, I'm feeling similar to what that person was feeling in that situation.
Exactly. If they see on screen that somebody is crying and they're able to sort of align that somebody who's crying is probably doing it because they're sad, which means next time they're crying, they're going to be able to communicate that I am doing this because I am sad.
God.
So finding that understanding in terms of expression, but also relating it to what they're seeing. So it doesn't have to be a complete, you take away screen time, you take away everything. You can bring in meaning in whatever they're doing. It doesn't have to be a change.
Yeah.
And research also recently has shown that shorter and more frequent play periods are definitely more effective than sporadic long play periods. So instead of trying to, set aside 2 hours every weekend, having 15 minutes of playtime every day can greatly contribute, one, into your own relationship with your child and how they are coming back to it and how they're looking at you, but also two, encourages your child to be able to talk to you more freely and then be able to come back and express themselves more freely to you because they see you as a part of their day-to-day routine. And the fact that you are taking interest in something that they are interested in creates a positive association for them, and then they would want to keep coming back to you. And then because it is very regular, you can also have an idea as a parent or as a caregiver as to what is the development that you are seeing because it's a regular exposure that you have to them.
Thank you for your insights on that topic. My next question would be, are there any signs that your child is not getting enough meaningful play, and how does that kind of reflect in their behavior or their attitude?
So, generally, when parents do come to us with concerns about misbehavior, we often see that it's restlessness and unmet needs for play outlets can look or come across as misbehavior. And while, of course, the indicators might look different from child to child, some common indicators that we can keep an eye out for are irritability or more frequent tantrums, finding difficulty in socializing, whether with their own peer group or even socializing in general, being apprehensive to new experiences, or just in general not feeling comfortable, or just restlessness in every movement can, be a great indicator for the fact that your child is not getting enough play.
I think my follow-up question to that would be that now more and more we are seeing that, at least in the last 20 to 30 years, that more and more women are entering the workforce. And children used to come from a single income household, but that's changed. And both parents are working now and tend to be working very taxing hours. In such cases, how can parents incorporate play into their busy schedules while not, of course, compromising on their work, but also ensuring that their child is getting all the necessary engagement that they need?
There are very small activities like I was mentioning earlier. 15 minutes of playtime would be great. 3 very popular activities with my clients are having a blindfold and playing a round of guess the sound with them. And you can bring in whatever, different things that you have lying around in the house, utensils, just random, pieces of wood, and striking across them and just getting your child to guess the sound. This is pretty popular across, really young kids and also preschoolers and toddlers. And then the second one would be any sort of texture-related play. It is also very good from an occupational therapy point as well because it helps them be more sensorily be flexible to different things, and their tactile function is working out really well. And the last thing that is very common and has been even with our generations and the previous ones are building a fort. You could literally set up a fort in your living room with your, pillows and everything.
Yeah.
And it takes about 15, minutes to set it up and dismantle. So it's a very quick, easy fix to accommodate. And
that the child can kind of occupy themselves with for hours.
Of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another aspect that perhaps we can go into, of course, in the last, especially in Hyderabad, in the last 10, 15 years, there's been so much urban development, and parents and children do not have the same kind of access to outdoor spaces and safe and regulated spaces as we did when we were children. Taking this into account, and how can parents keep this in mind and adapt their versions of play to either an apartment setup or a gated community setup where they might not have as much access to outdoor spaces, but they're still able to expose their child in small and regulated ways?
Definitely. While nothing beats, access to outdoor spaces, play doesn't necessarily have to be dependent on, your access to outdoor spaces. Some, again, fan favorites, especially from our children, is setting up a bowling station with water bottles. And just you could do that in your hallway outside your apartment. You could do it inside your apartment. You could do it if you have access to a tennis court in your gated community, you could be definitely setting that up. Dance parties are very, very popular. Having that free play and free space and you joining in is what adds value to that playtime. Scavenger hunts, you could, if you're doing it as a building or a community oriented thing, that would work out really great where common spaces can be utilized, but you could also just as easily do it as a part of your own apartment. And my general tip to parents is to carry, play kits where you're repurposing old cardboard boxes or shoe boxes to carry art material or small blocks or Legos or even, cards, and then, taking them with you in the car so that your child is free while you're sitting in the front or you're driving. They're free to indulge in that playtime and they're not just sitting there. Or even smaller games like rounding up the number plates that you see of the cars that are going by are again very popular because it then also brings back your core value to your math and everything and also their attention span, but it's also engaging them in a way where a car ride would just have gone, as a waste of time otherwise. And so, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Aashlesha. Any parting words for our audience?
Of course, as somebody who's coming from a more clinical space, my reminders are going to come in from the fact that play is something that we look at as not just an integral necessity part of your child's daily life, but also something that supports developmental, aspect of your child's growth, and also something that we very greatly hold in regard for therapeutic intervention. And, it's very, very important to reframe how we look at play in the current scenario. Play is a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's not limited as an affordance to certain people. It cannot be something that is optional in your child's life.
Correct. Thank you so much, Aashlesha, for reminding us that play is quite essential. At Acumen, our vision is to create spaces where play fuels curiosity, resilience, and joy. And that's how we believe children truly excel. Thank you for tuning in to Acumen EdTalks, and we will see you in the next episode as we continue pursuing excellence every day.